Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I am Kaylee Batesman, the Content Director at She Can Code, and today we're discussing why you don't have to be technical to work in tech. And we've all heard of that stereotypical person who works in tech. You know the scene. They're probably working in a dark room, looking at 3 screens filled with coding, and they're probably a man. So we're going to smash these stereotypes today and show you that you don't have to be technical for a career in tech. So I have the wonderful Sarah Norford-Jones, co-founder of YEO Messaging, which is a private messaging application, and she is joining us today to discuss this further. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, we're excited to chat on this topic. It's something that we hear a lot. People mention it in passing on here about not having to be technical. So we'd love to dive into that today with you. Can we get started with a little bit of background about yourself first, please?
Yes, of course. So hello, everybody. I'm Sarah, and as Kaylee mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CMO of YEO Messaging. So I started my career about 13 years ago now in advertising and marketing. I started working for an ad agency and then kind of did a few different things within that realm and started my own business, which was a creative boutique, which was an agency that focused on branding and digital design for startups and scale-ups. And about 5 years ago, I started working on YEO Messaging with my father. He's my co-founder and CEO. And yeah, we had this idea that we wanted to repatriate people's privacy and put control back into the hands of the sender. Things today that you send anywhere, wherever it be, on social media or messaging platforms, you lose control the moment you hit send. So our idea was we wanted to put the control back into the hand of the sender with YEO Messaging.
So what I found really interesting, actually, when I looked into your company and just had a little Google as to what you guys do, I love the fact that I clicked on one of your explainer videos and it came up right at the end with privacy, security, control. You got the message, and I thought she definitely comes from a background in marketing and advertising. And it was so snappy that I thought that is just a perfect example of somebody that, you know, tech has such a range of roles, and just even seeing that tiny little explainer video, I thought, yeah, she's definitely going to be from an advertising background.
Oh, I love it. I love it when people pick up on stuff like that. Yeah. I think just to give a little bit more background, I mean, as I said, my co-founder is my father. He comes from a more tech background as such. You know, he's older than me, obviously, he's my dad, but he's got the knowledge of that kind of industry, and that's why we work so well together, because I've come from it from a design and from a, you know, comms like kind of area, and we've married the two together and it really works. So when you take a really good idea, or we think it's a really good idea, when you take a really good tech product like that and you get some really good marketing or some good branding, or, you know, even if it's just a really great logo and things like that, I mean, it really works. So I think that's really important.
Was it your dad's idea or your idea?
So he came, so when at the time I actually had my branding agency, and he came to me with this idea and he said, I really want to create a new messaging platform. I've seen this really cool new facial recognition software that can be used on a mobile device that's continuous rather than just being for unlocking something, because at the moment it's just mainly for passwords replacement. But the technology he'd seen was for a long duration of facial recognition on a device without wearing down the battery. And he's like, I really want to do something with this, with kind of like a Snapchat, but a bit better and a bit more professional, and being able to authenticate and know who's on the other side of the message. But he was like, I've never done an app before. I don't know this world really that well. And he wasn't from that kind of generation of having that instant messaging tool. So he came to me with the idea and he was like, do I want to do it with him? I was like, hang on a minute, let's see what we can do here. Let's have a look, see if there's a market out there for something like this. So we did all of our research, kind of honed in the idea a little bit more, made it more usable, because we're like, how are we going to marry some really like something that people are so used to doing and so used to like every day people send a message. And how we're going to then marry something so complex such as facial recognition software into that. So we actually also brought in another one of our founders, which is Luca Rognoni, who's now our CTO. And his background is, he's very much, as you described, the typical background of a person working in tech. But he was someone that we brought on as well, and he's helped us shape the software and build it out.
Yeah, it is always so interesting to hear why people start businesses and their experiences. I had a lady on here a few weeks ago, and she said to me, I thought she was going to say she worked in insurance previously because she created an app for InsurTech. And when she got on here, actually, she had no background in insurance. And it's absolutely amazed me that the roots into technology, she just saw that there was a gap in the market and launched her own insurance app, which was absolutely amazing. So, and yourself, you're the first I've heard that that your dad and yourself got together and decided to create an app, obviously, which is doing incredibly well.
And it's cybersecurity, which I find like nuts, that I've gone from advertising, marketing, and now I'm like a woman in cybersecurity, which I just find very funny as a label. But yeah.
and obviously, which ties into our discussion today about not being technical and having a great career in tech, because obviously, you know, in terms of the technical side, being a programmer or a coder requires technical skills. So what does a career in tech look like for those who don't want or have technical skills?
So if you think about it, tech touches almost like everything. Any kind of business now, you're going to have some aspect of it being technical. So I think we've got to stop limiting ourselves from thinking that it's just programming or coding, or, you know, you're a software developer, or it's something very, very targeted. It can hit healthcare, retail, you know, travel, you can insurance, as you just mentioned, finance, media, and like marketing. Everything has a technical aspect to it now, or it has a tech role within it. And there's no sign of this slowing down. There's so much I mean, I'm seeing every day people with new jobs or new job roles that are opening up. So from any of those industries that I've mentioned, there's roles such as project management. You could do account management, sales, design, marketing, as I'm doing, or, you know, there's loads of creative roles nowadays in copywriting, content creation, tech journalism, tech PR. You can specialize and not have absolutely anything, any skills to do, and still have one of those roles. Obviously, it entails learning another skill, or you need to have other skills to be able to fulfill those roles. But you don't need to know a programming language to you know, be a project manager, for instance.
Yes, it's interesting as well. You just said about being creative there as well. That's such a stereotype, isn't it? That the tech industry is not creative. You don't have to be from a creative background. Actually, yourself coming from advertising and marketing is incredibly creative.
Completely, yeah. But also there's so many roles within, like, I'm just thinking on our team, we've got you know, a UI UX designer who, without the knowledge of that skill set, there's no way he could do what he's doing. He's literally mapping out our entire application and designing each screen and having to understand the usability and how users want to work and interact with it. So it's he's not gone to school and, you know, learned about how to code, but he's definitely, you know, applying that skill to tech right now.
Yes, we actually had a podcast on here a few weeks ago about UX design, and exactly that, because you're absolutely right. I think it is one of those roles where you think, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to have to be a coder. But actually, you know, you have the person who knows the tech, the coding side of it, and that designer is there to make sure that your experience on the front end, you know, is something that you want to come back and keep using. It actually has nothing to do with coding, which is quite a misconception.
Yeah,
Why do you think the tech sector is such a great industry to get into? We hear about, some of the great benefits. It can be very flexible. The pay can be very good. There's, as you mentioned, a range of roles there. Is there anything in your opinion as to why it's such a great draw?
I mean, for me, you mentioned them, the main kind of benefits from my side. I am a mum, I have a son and I have one on the way. So for me, being able to work from home and having that flexibility and still being connected as a team is really a huge benefit, instead of having to go in and out of commuting every day, which and it also just means that you're flexible. You can, sometimes I work better if I wake up really early and I get a load of stuff done, and then I can have a bit of freedom in the afternoon. It's quite, unless it depends on your employer, but you have that flexibility if you get the work done, and you can kind of work and do it from anywhere really. And yeah, you mentioned that the pay, depending on the skill set that you have and the amount of time you have been employed for, you can earn a lot of money in tech. Just look at some of the day rates for Android, iOS developers, or any of the other skills that I've mentioned. The freelance day rates are just absolutely ridiculous. You can earn a lot of money. And I think for me, one of the things is that it's always evolving. It's like change. There's always new things coming out. There's always something happening. There's always someone coming out, inventing something new, and there's new innovation every day. For me, I love to continuously learn. And it's definitely a role in which I am learning every day. So that's one of the biggest kind of wins for me.
Yes, and it's interesting you talk about the industry always evolving, which it is. And I know obviously, we've heard of some quite high level redundancies from big companies this year in tech, unfortunately. But as an industry as a whole, we move incredibly fast. That if you're looking for a career, for instance, if you're a graduate just coming out of university, the tech career is a great place to go, because we'll always have jobs. Those jobs are always evolving. So yeah, I think that's also a misconception, isn't it, about the pay? And people just don't quite understand actually the opportunity that's available within tech, and also that you have to be very technical to earn high salaries as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you said, there's such a broad range of roles that you can still have a high salary and work in a completely different department. It could be HR, for instance, within a tech company.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for those breaking into a tech career without a tech background? How would they do that?
I guess my advice would be, I think it's the same with anything, right? The more you throw out there, the more you hopefully will get back. So in terms of just applying yourself, putting yourself in front of as many people as you possibly can. I feel your network is your net worth in a way. So I feel like the more you can work your socials, your personal brand. I am advertising at the end of the day. I think if you can really push your personal brand, where it be social, your LinkedIn profile, your bio, all of these things, create your own content, write your own blog articles about what you want to be doing and what aligns with where you want to be, as well as who you are now, I think is really important. And just going for it. Like if you don't ask, you don't get. So I think if there's a role that you really like the look of, but you think, oh, but I don't have that skill, still apply. If you show that you're passionate and you show that you are dedicated and you communicate well, I think there's people, I've seen CVs come through for YEO, and we've taken people that maybe have not had the exact skill set that we want, but they tick all the other boxes. They are incredibly passionate about what we're doing. They want to be part of it, and they're eager to learn. So I think as long as you can put that forward and apply yourself, I think go for it. It would be my advice on that.
Yes, especially as a female in tech, I think companies are crying out for that diversity, and as you say, even if you don't tick all of the boxes, I think they would be absolutely willing to, you know, at least hear you out on an interview, because you might not shine on your CV, but, you know, they'd at least want to chat with you about your skills. Which leads me on to the soft skills, and you know, what soft skills do you think are incredibly important for tech roles? Because you mentioned quite a few there. It's not necessarily, you know, what you're qualified in, or your background, that soft skills are massively important.
Yeah, I mentioned communicate. As long as you can communicate well. Obviously, in tech, there are things that can become very technical, and I think you need to be able to communicate clearly, and also understand the problem and be able to have that kind of problem solving side of you as well. I think is really important. Tech solves problems. Obviously, there are tech things that maybe don't, but I think if you can really be a good problem solver and a good team person and be able to collaborate with people, oftentimes tech roles, there will be a lot of collaboration, whether it is you know, project management or any of the other kind of roles that I mentioned. You need to be able to collaborate and work well with people. Yeah, and I guess the last one would just be being organized. You need to, I mean, obviously you can be chaotic in the way you work, but as long as you're organized in terms of showing up and, you know, keeping yourself in order is always a good skill to have as well.
Yes, oh God, yes, for every job in tech. It's interesting you saying there about well, obviously, you know, people think you have to be technical to come into tech. I think when I started in work, though, you can quite easily get confused between, especially in technology, feeling like you have to know all of these things, and actually you don't, because when you just start to hone down and focus on your job, you know, it doesn't matter that you don't know those things. You know, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to code the application that you know, the business that you work at, because it's not your job and it's not what you're good at and what you shine at. So I think it's this kind of settling into your role and thinking, I don't have to know everything and be good at everything, because that's what the developers are for, and this is what I was hired for. I think when you say you work in tech, people can panic a little bit and think, I remember when I started writing about tech, I used to worry that people would think, well, you know, I can't actually run a data center, but I used to write a lot of articles about running a data center, but you know, obviously would not be let loose running one for a company. But then it quickly dawns on you, I don't need to know, that's not my job.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as long as you can surround yourself with people that are really good at what they do, you know, like as you said, I know enough now after 5 years of working with YEO Messaging of what code we use and all these, you know, more technical discussions I can get involved in. But part of my brain also just doesn't like function that way. So it's one of those like left brain, right brain scenarios that happens as well, I think. But that's why if you're starting your own business, you hire people that are specialized in those areas to support you. Or, you know, if you're working in a larger business, maybe not a startup, there will be people that have the right backgrounds for the right roles as well. So as long as you can lean in and lean on them if you have questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The amount of questions I ask, I'm like, what does that mean? I have no idea. Can someone explain this? Because it's just, you know, I'd rather get it right and ask the question than pretend I know and then look stupid down the line because I've not ever asked. But
yeah, there's also incredibly unique for founders as well, isn't it? I think the phrase I've heard before is founder syndrome, and not being able to let go. And as you say, it's absolutely correct that you know, at YEO, you hire the best people to do the job because that's what they can do, and you understand that you can't do everything. And I think especially with startups, sometimes you do have that person that kind of clings on to everything and thinks, I can't let go.
I think I was that person, I'm not going to lie, and I have learned over the years to let go, and I've definitely let go now. But at the beginning, I was like, I must control everything. Like, I can't. But yeah, it's impossible, and it's also not healthy. And it's, yeah, you need a good, healthy work-life balance. And if you're going to try and control everything like that, then it's definitely going to be tipped more towards the work rather than the work life.
Yes, I think probably once you started to get a team around you that you could trust, that started to become slightly easier.
Yes.
In letting go of things. Yeah. Do you think having that lack of technical skills for some people, do you think that can put women off from applying for roles?
I don't know. I think probably yes. I think I don't want to speak for all women around because I know that everyone's different, but I think that women do suffer more with imposter syndrome, with feeling maybe they're not good enough, and maybe they just don't go for it as much as our male counterparts. But I don't know, maybe that's just me generalizing, because I do feel that there has been a major shift, and I think that more women are putting themselves out there. There's a lot in the media, there's a lot, you know, of people speaking up about the topic, and I think that it is slowly changing. But yeah, maybe some people are put off because they just don't think that they're good enough, or, you know, they don't think they have the right skill set, so they just don't even bother. But I think that probably applies to both. Well, I don't know, maybe it is maybe more just women. I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, there is that saying, isn't there, about with job applications and females feeling like they can't always apply unless they hit, you know, sort of 90% of the asks on that job application, compared to a guy who might just go for it. But I suppose that also depends on the person as well. You might not get men that go for jobs that only meet, you know, 2 of the bullet points and have the cheek to apply anyway. I think it does depend on the person, but I think you're absolutely right. If you feel that you don't meet all of the criteria, you should still absolutely just even just put in an application and see if somebody comes back, just to say, you know, actually they might come back and say, we have a training program internally where we can, you know, help you with whatever these extra things might be, especially if you're returning to the workplace, say after a maternity or a brief leave for caring for somebody, for instance. There are lots of companies that are there to bridge that gap and to skill you back up. So why wouldn't you reapply or apply for a role that you think is, you know, could be suitable for you? You mentioned a little bit already. So as a female founder of a tech company, you talked a little bit about how you navigate the more techie aspects of your business. You mentioned sometimes you just think, you know what, this just isn't for me, and I'm going to leave it to somebody else. Luckily with you, though, I'm assuming, like, because you have your father who can deal with that side of things. Is that how that works? And you just think, you know what, maybe I'm not the right person for this, or are you involved in those conversations?
I think that goes also back to the control aspect of it. At the beginning, yes, I was like, I need to know everything that's happening, and I need, like, obviously I have oversight of everything that's happening, but before I wanted to get into the nitty-gritty and try and learn, and honestly, my brain just, like, it just was a bit too much, I guess, for me, because I was taking on too much. But yeah, I think having the support of a co-founder that has a different skill set than you, and having that level of trust, you are able to just let go of some things and just say, okay, I don't need to learn, I don't need to know everything. I've got a real base level of this, and I can, you know, as a founder, if we get picked to do things or talk to people or investors or whoever it might be, I need to have a core knowledge of what we're doing, and I need to be able to answer questions on it. But to be able to get into the real granular detail of it, not so much anymore. I have, you know, a good team that I can direct people to, which is good.
Yes, yeah, and as well as that, just owning your role, and I suppose just figuring out what you're good at, and being proud of that, and be able to say, these are my skills as a founder. You know, you can speak eloquently about, YEO and the business, perhaps one of your developers might not be able to do that. So, it's kind of all of those skills are necessary to ensure that your business is successful. Do you have any advice for those thinking about launching their own tech business? Is there anything that you wish somebody would have told you?
The first thing that comes to my head is it's going to take a lot longer than you think it's going to take, which we thought, let's just, build this great app that's new messaging, and it's going to have facial recognition and geofencing technology and all these great features, and it's taken years. So I guess that's one piece of advice. It's going to take longer than you anticipate. And then the other one is just really research before you even start it. Just, you need to know if there's a market for it. There's no point. There's so much competition. It's expensive to do, to really build something and build it well. So before you even go there, I would suggest doing all the market research you possibly can, making sure that there is a use case and a user base out there that's actually going to want and will benefit from the tech that you're wanting to build.
And because startups, obviously, they come with their own unique set of challenges as well. Have you found any challenges with staffing, maybe, in terms of, I think there are those people out there, and one of them who loves working at a startup, but you don't always get that, do you? I mean, there are obviously ups and downs of working at a startup. I completely enjoy that life, but have you found any challenges there, finding the right staff to fit your business?
Yes, definitely. I think, as you say, it takes a certain type of person to really enjoy it and grasp that startup environment. It's fast, there's things change every day. 1 minute we're going after one client, the next minute we're having to go for another one. We're pitching for investment, we're doing this, and every day is different. So it is very fast-paced. It's I wouldn't say unstable, but it feels as if it's like we're shape-shifting every day kind of thing, trying to do different things. And as a person, obviously, that's hired into a startup, you agree to your role, and yes, that's your role, but just know you're going to be doing a lot of other things, because you wear lots of hats when you work in a startup. Whereas, which is for me as well, I'm a startup person. I love it. I get really excited about it. And I love doing a bit of everything, which, I think keeps me on my toes. It's an interesting one. We've had some developers that have come and gone and said, this isn't for me. They prefer the more, rigid kind of, I guess, role where they know that they're coming in every day and doing the same thing, because maybe it's not really for them. But then we've had some people that are still with us since day one. So it really depends. And I think we've gotten better now about our interviewing process, and really explaining the role and explaining who we are, and really making sure that the person understands that we are a startup and this is the kind of environment that they're going to be involved in. And then the other thing, I guess, for a startup, it's hard to retain the salaries when you've got huge competition like Facebook or Meta, all of these huge big tech companies that can just poach and put a massive increase of salary on top. So you've got to find the right people, and the people that are really passionate about what you're doing and that can fit in that startup environment. It's really important.
Yeah, and people that are looking for that journey where they can really, move fast, and as you say, just learn new things and want to learn skills that they, probably have never done in any other company, because, you've got so much responsibility on you in a startup, because you're thinking, you sort of look behind you sometimes and you think, oh, is there anyone else that can help with that? No, there's nobody else. So
Just me.
just me. So you're going to have to learn very fast, and just move through it, which is a lot of fun, but as you can say, can be quite a challenge for some people when they're thrown in the deep end. So it's obviously about finding the right fit for a startup. We are nearly out of time, so I just wanted to ask you, what's next for YEO Messaging?
Well, this year has already kind of started out with a bang for us. We just got listed as one of the Startups 100 businesses to watch out for this year. So I'm feeling very positive. We are going to start working with a few clients that we had already been in discussion with last year. So those will start really being pushed forward this year, which we're really excited about. And for me, I am very passionate about making the digital world safer for children, as well as for the business clients that we have. So I'm really hoping to do a partnership with a children's organization this year as well, where we can provide safe messaging for kids, where they can know who's on the other side of the messaging. So there's no room for kind of fraud or the darker side of things that can happen with children. So that's something that I'm really pushing for, and looking forward to doing more work in this year.
Oh, amazing. Yes, when I was reading about you have lots of different features, don't you? Security elements, like being able to remove messages from somebody else's app if you need, and all of those things. And I was reading it thinking, oh, actually this would be incredibly useful, especially for young people, as you mentioned, online, just to have that safety net.
Yeah, completely. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I got involved and did this in the first place. So for me, that's always been my driving force. So I'm really passionate, and hopefully we can get something going this year for that side of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. We were already out of time. So thank you so much for coming along and chatting with us today, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I've loved the chat. Really,
thank you.
Good.
And for everybody listening, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.